The late 90s and early to mid 2000s had some of my favorite teen comedies: American Pie, Can't Hardly Wait, Road Trip, and of course today's topic, Eurotrip. But one thing that was a bigger hit than the movie itself was the song Scotty Doesn't Know, which was specifically written for the film. The song's popularity was due in large part to a social media website, and it apparently saved a woman from slipping into a coma. You guys may be also surprised to learn there's a second version of Scotty Doesn't Know that never made it into the film, and one of the biggest pop stars on the planet apparently ripped the song off as well. In today's video, let's talk about the history of the song Scotty Doesn't Know. Eurotrip would be released in February of 2004, and the premise of the movie is as follows. Scott Thomas is the movie's main protagonist. He's graduating high school and his girlfriend Fiona dumps him the day of his graduation. He's heartbroken, so Scott attends a graduation party later that night and sees a garage band singer played by a bald, pierced, and tattooed Matt Damon sing a song called Scotty Doesn't Know. The song hilariously documents his affair with Fiona while she was with Scott. Soon afterwards, Scott learns his German pen pal is not a man like he initially thought, but an attractive blonde girl. The rest of the movie is centered around Scott and his friends going to Europe to meet his German pen pal. The movie would be filmed in Prague. Even the parts that are set in America were shot in the Czech Republic. The movie was being filmed at a time in 2003 when there was this global SARS outbreak, there was the second Iraq War going on, and on top of that, the filmmakers had a pretty limited budget to work with. So they had issues getting people to fly to Czech Republic to make a cameo in the film because they deemed it was too dangerous. The filmmakers ultimately decided that the best thing to do was to see who else was in Prague at the time shooting a film, and it turned out some of the guys who wrote Eurotrip went to school with actor Matt Damon, who just happened to be in the city filming the movie The Brothers Grimm. Damon would shave his head for the role and was wearing wigs for The Brothers Grimm, and he had recently given up smoking and was looking pretty buff. They would pitch Matt Damon the idea of playing who they envisioned would be like a Henry Rollins type of guy, and he loved the idea and agreed to do it. Damon even had an open day on the longest day of the year, June 21st, and that's how he got the role of the singer. One idea that was originally written in the script was to have Matt Damon and Fiona having sex in a pool and having Scott walk in on them, but they ultimately scrapped the idea, and honestly, the scene that they went with, in my personal opinion, is so much more funny. Damon would do an AMA on Reddit years later where he revealed a little bit more about the scene in the film. He would state, "The song was actually written by one of my college roommate's brothers, and in the band, one of my college roommates is actually in that backup band. Jason is playing guitar in that group, so it's kind of a family affair." The song was never performed by Matt Damon because he lip-synced it during the filming, and the band isn't even plugged in during the scene. The song would actually be written by a band called Lustra, who plays Damon's backing band in the film. The writers had written some lyrics for the song and had asked the group to take a stab at it. Eurotrip writer Dave Mandel would tell Uproxx, "The guys who wrote the song, the band Lustra, and his backup band, those are the guys, some of which we went to college with. One is also the brother of a guy we went to college with, and Matt was also at Harvard around the same time and knew some of the guys as well. It was a great day to be a Harvard graduate, so that helps." Jeff Schaefer, who is the director of Eurotrip, would also add, "We weren't trying to make a catchy song necessarily. We were trying to make a song that was telling this joke. We were trying to make what's the most embarrassing thing you could do that could happen to you after graduation." Nick Cloutman, who is a member of Lustra, already had the guitar riff lying around and thought that maybe they could use it for something, and it ended up being used in Scotty Doesn't Know. But in his head, the riff was originally much slower, more in line with New Order, and the writers wanted something similar to Blink-182 or Sum 41, at least according to him. But the story doesn't end there. The film's producers had actually enlisted two versions of Scotty Doesn't Know. There was another version that was written by a musician named Matt Mahaffey, who's in the band Self. The only similarity between Lustra and Mahaffey's version was that the line Scotty Doesn't Know would appear in it. The writers of the film had come up with the line Scotty Doesn't Know. Mahaffey would take a short meeting with the film's producers, telling Uproxx, "I was told that it was a punky cheating song that was needed from the point of view of an unabashed cheater. I was briefed about the basic subject matter, names of key characters, and that was it. No real scene context. It was a 30-minute meeting in the valley. I wrote it in 15 minutes, and I got to my studio and was as punky crude as I could muster." He would end up releasing his version online years later, but sadly, the link seems to have been taken down. The film studio ended up preferring Mahaffey's version, but the writers pushed for Lustra's version to be used instead, and they ultimately got their way. When the filmmakers were doing the scene with Matt Damon, they thought the scene was going to be amazing, and they really didn't think much about the song at that point. There were no rehearsals for the scene, and they just kind of shot it and saw what worked. At the film's premiere, Lustra would perform the song live, and the members would even get to meet Larry David, since a few of the writers had actually worked on Seinfeld. Eurotrip seemed to come and go, sadly, without much fanfare, at least initially. It made $20 million at the box office on a $25 million budget, a commercial flop. But in more recent years, it's developed a cult following. Fast forward to 2006, and Lustra's track Scotty Doesn't Know suddenly shows up on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, peaking at number 78. Cloutman would recall to Uproxx receiving a phone call from Billboard magazine thinking that he was being pranked. It had turned out that Lustra was one of several unsigned acts in Billboard history to chart. Another notable artist was Lisa Loeb. So how did a 2-year-old song suddenly chart? Well, apparently MySpace was instrumental as people rediscovered the song, and well, the rest is history. It would be Lustra's only song of their career to chart, and it would be included on their 2006 release Left for Dead. The band's last release came in the form of an EP in 2009. Then it was around 2007-2008, the members of the band were sent emails by their fans and friends about the similarities between Scotty Doesn't Know and Miley Cyrus' song Rockstar, which she released under the Hannah Montana moniker. Here's a comparison of the tracks. It turned out Lustra would work with the same producer who worked with Miley Cyrus. The band offered Miley to join them at a show in Hollywood in 2008 and have her perform her song Rockstar after the band played Scotty Doesn't Know and let the audience decide if they were similar. She didn't take them up on the offer. There was a lot of controversy about the similarities between the two songs written in the press in 2008, but it's not exactly clear what happened afterwards. I'm guessing there was some sort of settlement. As for what the song did for Lustra's career, member Jason Adams would give an interview and state how the studio for the film had bought an ad spot for the West Coast feed of the 2004 Super Bowl. There was a lot of hope from the members that the film would do well and then maybe they could push labels to sign them, but since the movie was a box office flop initially, it ultimately did nothing for their career in terms of them being able to make a living playing music. While the movie would have a resurgence and the song gained popularity afterwards, Lustra's career eventually fizzled out and the members went on to do other things. Let's talk about the woman in a coma. So Cloutman would tell Uproxx one of the more memorable stories involving the song, saying, "There was this girl, I want to say in the Midwest or Indiana. It was her friend contacting us. She said her friend was in a car with some other people to get pizza and the car got T-boned. The girl was dragged out of the car by paramedics and was put into a stretcher and ultimately went into a coma. As she was slipping into this coma, her phone started ringing and she had the Scotty Doesn't Know ringtone. In her dazed state, she started singing along to it. It's one of those things where you don't consider you're going to be attached to something that has this positive meaning for people." As for Matt Damon, he would be quoted as saying, "I don't get it. I was Ripley in The Talented Mr. Ripley. I was Private Ryan in Saving Private Ryan, Jason Bourne in The Bourne Identity, and people walk up to me all the time and just go, Scotty Doesn't Know." As for whether we'd ever see a sequel to Eurotrip, the writers would admit that they'd be up for doing it, but the studio behind the film, DreamWorks, hasn't been asking for a second film. Director Jeff Schaefer would perfectly sum up the legacy of the song, telling Uproxx, "We set out to make a really funny movie that had a cool song in it, and it seems like now there's this really cool song that reminds people that there's this really funny movie." Then in 2018, the song was once again in the news when Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison didn't renew his personal website, so some prankster bought the rights to it for $50 and had Lustra Scotty Doesn't Know playing on a loop with a picture of the Australian Prime Minister. The prank generated so much media buzz that the web traffic overwhelmed the website, resulting in it crashing for a period of time. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. If you guys have suggestions for topics you'd like to see me cover, use the link in the description box below, and we'll see you again on Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.